it's clear that Judge Chutkan is accepted the Biden administration's and the Democratic Party's invitation to have the judiciary interfere with the elections next year. I'll open up with this, is the current crisis as it relates to the prosecutions, the political prosecutions of President Trump by the Biden administration, Democratic Party, and its allies in New York City and in, most recently, Fulton County, Georgia. Developments in that case, or those cases, include Judge Chutkan, who is the recent, not that recent actually, she's an Obama appointee judge, no friend of President Trump based on comments she's made from the bench previously in January 6 cases that she's handled. She set a trial for the sham prosecution of Trump for March 4th of 2024, which is a day before the Super Tuesday primaries. And as I've highlighted to you, this is a case about alleged election interference by President Trump, right? That he wanted to, quote, overturn the election by disputing the election, which of course is an Alice in Wonderland legal analysis run by political, being put out there by the political prosecutors in the Biden Justice Department. And so on top of that, the judge, rather than rejecting the desperate effort by the Biden administration to jail Trump next year, because they wanted this trial to begin in January, she said, oh no, that's too soon. It's going to be 2 or 3 months later, in March. Actually, literally 2 months later. And President Trump's lawyers had asked for the trial to begin in 2026. So it's clear that Judge Chutkan is accepted the Biden administration's and the Democratic Party's invitation to have the judiciary interfere with the elections next year. And of course, this snap trial that I think is really an abomination in terms of the president's rights to a fair trial is just on top of all the other abuses we're seeing. And it's bad enough to have the prosecutors abuse their powers, but when you see the judges ratify it and play along or pretend it's not happening, it's really destabilizing, I think, to our system of justice. It undermines confidence in the fair administration of justice. And for instance, in this case, you have tens of millions of documents, at least 12 million documents last I checked, that need to be reviewed by Trump's lawyers to prepare for the trial. And of course, there are other witnesses and things like that. And of course, he has other indictments he's facing from allied, not only from the Justice Department, but from the prosecutors in New York and in Georgia. And Judge Chutkan actually said, well, you should have begun preparation when the grand jury was first called. So you're not indicted, you've not been accused of a crime, and you're supposed to be preparing for the defense? Well, that shows you that the grand jury process is corrupted if the judge thinks that you should just presume you're going to be indicted if a grand jury is called. But again, that's more of an Alice in Wonderland legal analysis. You know, you should be prepared for trial just because there's been a grand jury, and you should prepare your defenses over cases that have been filed against you, charges that haven't been specified against you. And he's punished for that with a snap trial. So whether the trial takes place or not, I think is still an open question, because part of this process, you go to trial, you start essentially, well, on that day in March of next year, March 4th, that's when the trial begins. In a sense, the jury selection begins. But what happens is the court kind of backs away from that date, and there are a series of briefs that are due in preparation for the trial, right? And some of those briefs could delay the trial significantly if they are appealed. The president's lawyers plan to assert immunity, raise First Amendment issues, selective prosecution issues, and who knows what else. and they may even object directly to the court about the snap nature of this trial. And this is on top of the desperate effort by the Fulton County to have a snap trial again in Georgia. So on top of that, they want a trial because one of the defendants of the, I think, 18 defendants wants a quick trial in October. And the response of the Fulton County, Georgia prosecutors said, well, everyone should be prosecuted or put on trial in October then. Of course, President Trump doesn't want to want to face trial that soon because he needs more time to prepare any defense or any challenges he has to the prosecution. So I want you to imagine a snap trial of 18 defendants on unprecedented charges related to daring to dispute under the First Amendment, under the other constitutional provisions governing elections, under federal law governing elections, under your rights as a citizen and a candidate, in the case of the president, a president, and they're trying to jail nearly 24 people in one fell swoop in one trial. This shows you the contempt and the politicization of the system of justice there in Fulton County. We see it happening up here in Washington, D.C., and I don't know if they're going to seek recusal of Judge Chutkan. I don't know if there's enough for recusal. I know just because people think, well, she's appointed by Obama, therefore she has to recuse herself. Well, that's not the way it works necessarily. But she has said a few things from the bench that would make me think a recusal question should be raised, especially when she complained, I don't have the exact quote, but you can look it up. She essentially complained that Trump hadn't been arrested. She was sentencing or talking to another defendant or referencing a defendant in the January 6th prosecutions, and she basically bemoaned the fact that Trump wasn't prosecuted. Now that suggests a certain bias that I think should be explored by Trump's lawyers, but we'll see. So it's a terrible time for the Republic still. I mean, it's being buffeted day by day, week by week, by these out-of-control prosecutors, these rogue prosecutors, these road prosecutions, and the courts don't seem terribly interested in reining it in too much, based at least on what's happened thus far up here in Washington, D.C. And what is Congress doing about it? No, don't worry. They are still on vacation. As I said to you before, they are on a 7-week recess, and they won't be back till September 12th. So you get Labor Day off. I'm sure most of you will be getting Labor Day off, and those of you who are working, thank you for working. But Congress has a 7-week recess, and if Speaker McCarthy, were serious about dealing with the current crisis, he would have called Congress back. He would have called the House back weeks ago. I was in a meeting the other day, and I said, well, how about calling Congress back, the House back, just a day early? Just pretend you take these issues seriously. We're running up on by the way, there's a September 30th deadline on this big spending fight, right? They're supposed to have all their ducks in a row with regard to appropriations by September 30th. Otherwise, they got to pass a continuing resolution, that fiscal cliff supposedly. And they're coming back on the 12th. And on top of that, we have these outrageous prosecutions and election interference and abuse of power by the Justice Department and Fulton County in New York, all of which can be stopped by congressional action in the context of that spending fight I just told you about. And then we have the ongoing crisis with President Biden's corruption, which McCarthy is trying to dance around. He keeps on saying, well, we're getting close to an impeachment inquiry, but he doesn't want an impeachment inquiry. Otherwise, we'd have one by now. He'd call Congress back. So if you are interested in having Congress do the work and do the heavy lifting that's necessary to stop this corruption, because they know what's happened. So are they going to keep on funding it or not? Okay? This is where the rubber meets the road over the next 6 weeks. Are they going to keep on funding it or not? Now, the establishment will say, you can't not fund the government, right? You have to fund the government. Doesn't matter what you're spending the money on, it just has the spice must flow, to quote the great book Dune. We've got to keep the money flowing. So if you've got concerns about the FBI being funded to target Americans and harass Americans, you've got concerns about the Justice Department interfering in our elections or obstructing justice to help Hunter, if you're concerned about agencies of the Biden administration censoring Americans, that has to be funded. If you're concerned about military academies telling their students, their cadets, their midshipmen that America is racist and we have to support Marxist critical race theory, that has to be funded. If you support this crazed prosecution in Fulton County or up in New York City against Trump, where they're trying to jail him for doing his job as president, literally, that has to be funded. Federal monies have to flow to Fulton County. There can be no cutoff. They're essentially going to be ratifying it unless they do something about it. Now, there are some congressmen who are going to be submitting appropriations bills. I think Congressman Clyde and Congressman Biggs and a few others, Congressman Gates, they've talked about doing this. So these are all opportunities for accountability, and not only that, but it actually could fix some of the misconduct and stop it. So it's all coming up. So you gotta talk to your members of Congress and let them know what you think, because you know what the establishment media is going to say, what the left media is going to say, what the establishment Republicans are going to say. Mitch McConnell, I know, who has health issues. I disagree with him on a lot of stuff. I agree with him on other things, but he doesn't want to do impeachment. You know, that crowd over there doesn't want to do impeachment or anything related to accountability. And as I said, if McCarthy wanted to do something on impeachment, he already would have done something on impeachment. And to keep you updated, as I told you a few weeks ago, we're still trying to get the January 6th videos out of Congress, right? And we've sued the Capitol Hill Police Department. And I want to tell you how frustrating it was 2 weeks ago when we were in court on a hearing related to this case. It was this case's hearing. We were seeking the videos. And so it's me, our lawyer, Michael Bekesha. We're in federal court before the judge. And at the other table are the attorneys for the Biden Justice Department, along with an attorney for the U.S. Capitol Hill Police. So essentially that's the McCarthy Congress, right, being represented by the Biden administration's Justice Department as they try to stop the January 6 videos from being designated public records and being widely released to the American people. So right now we are battling Speaker McCarthy's Congress and the Biden administration on this core transparency issue about January 6th. So I know sometimes McCarthy does the right thing, but I tell you, when you're on the wrong side of transparency, when you're on the wrong side of government accountability, Judicial Watch is going to call you out. And we are nonpartisan, Republicans and Democrats. Both need to be held accountable to the rule of law, and they just can't let the corruption go by as if no one's being impacted and our system isn't being broken by it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.